In that. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Happy Monday. It's Monday, Monday, Monday. You know what we do on Mondays? Same thing we do every day, Pinky. We read the Bible. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Today is Monday, March 23rd, 2020. The time is now 7:09 a.m. Central Standard Time. That is Texas time here in Fort Worth, Texas. And yes, it is week 13 of reading the Bible, which means I need to change that at the top. It still says week 12. 13 weeks of reading the Bible. I cannot believe it. Well, actually, I can. Actually, I can't, but I can. Because it's real. Okay, so there we go. Let's change that. Week 13. All right. It is week 13 of me reading the Bible. I cannot believe it. And so I will say, yo. Anyways, I got to work on my freestyle. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. Let me look over here to the live chat. Bucky's 2.0, early bird in the room. Hello. Laverne Dorsey, good morning. Life of Key, good morning. The Wheels, morning. It is week 13 of reading the Bible. I'm so excited. I'm so excited. So yeah, let me do a quick screen share so I can show you guys what's going on. Yes. Okay. So you should see on your screen, it says right there, week 13. Week 13 of reading the Bible. Let me show you the cover first. This is my digital download from Kindle, the Kindle store. It is A Woman's Guide to Reading the Bible in a Year, a life-changing journey into the heart of God. The author is Diane Stortz. If you're interested in this particular download that I'm using, the link is in the description. Going over here, hit this little arrow. Is the arrow going to work? Yes, the arrow works. And as you can see, we are, what is that? That is not what I was expecting. Okay, let me go to the table of contents. I'll do it from there. Here we go. So last week we finished up week 12. The theme was a special treasure. This week the theme is choose life. Choose life. That's what you should see on your screen right now. And it says, this is the theme for the week, after Moses reminded the Israelites of their history, because that's what we're doing right now in Deuteronomy. If a lot of this seems familiar, he's repeating what has already happened. He's retelling the story. After Moses reminded the Israelites of their history, he continued to prepare them to enter the promised land. In Deuteronomy, we read Moses' retelling of much of the law God had given earlier, the terms of his covenant with his people. Then Moses explained how the covenant would be renewed when the people entered the promised land. He emphasized God's promise of blessings for obedience, but trouble and disaster for disobedience. He prophesied the Israelites' future exile and their return to their land because of God's mercy. Before his death, Moses wrote down all of God's instructions and gave the book to the priests for safekeeping. He also commanded that all of Deuteronomy be read aloud to the people every 7 years. Soon, God told Moses to climb Mount Nebo. From there, God showed him the entire land of Canaan before he died, and God himself buried Moses. Let's see, the leadership of God's people then belonged to Joshua. The book of Psalms contains poetic songs and prayers written and compiled from the time of Moses to the time of Ezra the scribe, about 1,000 years later. So here we go in this orangish, yellowish box over here. We're going to be doing, I'm going to be reading Deuteronomy 16 through 18. And by the end of the week, come Sunday, I'm going to jump into the book of Psalms there at the bottom, 1 through 5. These are the checkpoints for this week's reading. A king's handwritten scroll. Sandals that didn't wear out. choosing life or death, the view from a mountain, an unknown burial place. So those are the checkpoints. Keep your ears perked up. At some point, I'm going to touch on those topics, and then we will have completed all of the reading for this week. So yes, let me do a recap. Because that's what I do. So today is 16, 17, and 18 of Deuteronomy. And how is everybody doing today? I hope everybody is doing really, really well. I hope that in spite of everything going on, everybody is living their best life and just enjoying each day, enjoying each moment, enjoying each other if you have somebody at home with you. What did I say? Oh, 13, 14, 15, right. Okay, so recap time. Yesterday I read chapter 13, which is a warning against idolatry. Let's see. In chapter 14, there was talk about ceremonially clean and unclean animals. There was also talking about the giving of tithes. Chapter 15 was release for debtors. Every 7 years. Release for debtors. And there was also the talk of release for Hebrew slaves. And we talked about that piercing of the ear on the doorpost there. And now, ladies and gentlemen, chapter 16. And thank you for the thumbs up, in case you haven't done so already. Passover and the Festival of Unleavened Bread. That's what this is going to be about. Passover and the Festival of Unleavened Bread. You know what that is, right? Pita bread, like flat bread, bread without yeast in it. In honor of the Lord your God, celebrate the Passover each year in the early spring in the month of Abib. Oh, that's kind of like right now, isn't it? For that was the month in which the Lord your God brought you out of Egypt by night. Your Passover sacrifice may be from either the flock or the herd, and it must be sacrificed to the Lord your God at the designated place of worship, the place he chooses for his name to be honored. Eat it with bread made without yeast. For 7 days the bread you eat must be made without yeast, as when you escaped from Egypt in such a hurry. Eat this bread, the bread of suffering, so that as long as you live, you will remember the day you departed from Egypt. Let no yeast be found in any house throughout your land for those 7 days. And when you sacrifice the Passover lamb on the evening of the first day, do not let any of the meat remain until the next morning. You may not sacrifice the Passover in just any of the towns that the Lord your God is giving you. You must offer it only at the designated place of worship, the place the Lord your God chooses for his name to be honored. Sacrifice it there in the evening as the sun goes down on the anniversary of your exodus from Egypt. Roast the lamb and eat it in the place the Lord your God chooses. Then you may go back to your tents the next morning. For the next 6 days you may not eat any bread made with yeast. On the 7th day, proclaim another holy day in honor of the Lord your God, and no work may be done on that day. And let me check in the postscripts here at the bottom, talking about the month of Abib. Let's see what happened. That would be 16:1. Hebrew, observe the month of Abib and keep the Passover unto the Lord your God. Abib, the first month of the ancient Hebrew lunar calendar, usually occurs within the months of March and April. That's what I said. Let's see. Okay, now on to verse 9. Talk about the festival of harvest. And I'm actually going to jump down in the postscript before I get there, because it's talking about verses 10. Hebrew festival of weeks, also in the also mentioned in 16:16. This was later called the festival of Pentecost. You can check this out in Acts 2:1. It is celebrated today as Shavuot or Shabbath. So that's what I'm about to read right now. Count off 7 weeks from when you first begin to cut the grain at the time of harvest, then celebrate the festival of harvest, Shabbath or Shavuot. To honor the Lord your God, bring him a voluntary offering in proportion to the blessings you have received from him. This is the time to celebrate before the Lord your God at the designated place of worship he will choose for his name to be honored. Celebrate with your sons and daughters, your male and female servants, the Levites from your towns, and the foreigners, orphans, and widows who live among you. Remember that you were once slaves in Egypt, so be careful to obey all these decrees. And in verse 13, it talks about the festival of shelters. What is the festival of shelters? Postscript says, or festival of booths, or festival of tabernacles. So it can be called either of those ways. Festival of shelters, festival of booths, or festival of tabernacles. This was earlier called the festival of the final harvest, or the festival of ingathering. It is celebrated today as Sukkot, or Sukkoth. You must observe the festival of shelters. For 7 days at the end of the harvest season, after the grain has been threshed and the grapes have been pressed, this festival will be a happy time of celebrating with your sons and daughters, your male and female servants, and the Levites, foreigners, orphans, and widows from your towns. For 7 days you must celebrate this festival to honor the Lord your God at the place he chooses, for it is he who blesses you with bountiful harvests and gives you success in all your work. This festival will be a time of great joy for all. Each year, every man in Israel must celebrate these 3 festivals: the festival of unleavened bread, the festival of harvest, and the festival of shelters. On each of these occasions, all men must appear before the Lord your God at the place he chooses. The Lord chooses, not the guy. But they must not appear before the Lord without a gift for him. All must give as they are able, according to the blessings given to them by the Lord your God. And in verse 18, it's talking about justice for the people. Justice for the people. Appoint judges and officials for yourselves from each of your tribes in all the towns the Lord is giving you. They must judge the people fairly. You must never twist justice or show partiality. Never accept a bribe, for bribes blind the eyes of the wise and corrupt decisions of the godly. Let true justice prevail, so you may live and occupy the land that the Lord your God is giving you. You must never set up a wooden Asherah pole beside the altar you build for the Lord your God, and never set up sacred pillars for worship, for the Lord your God hates them. In chapter 17, it says, never sacrifice sick or defective cattle, sheep, or goats to the Lord your God, for he detests such gifts. I can kind of see that, because if I got something that's not really good, like not really wholesome, and it's like, I'm not really going to use this anyway, I'll give it to God. That's kind of messed up, isn't it? I get that now. Never sacrifice sick or defective cattle, sheep, or goats. If it's good enough for you, it should be good enough for God, right? That's why it's a sacrifice. Okay, verse 2. When you begin living in the towns the Lord your God is giving you, a man or woman among you might do evil in the sight of the Lord your God and violate the covenant. For instance, they might serve other gods or worship the sun, the moon, or any of the stars, the forces of heaven, which I have strictly forbidden. When you hear about it, investigate the matter thoroughly. If it is true that this detestable thing has been done in Israel, then the man or woman who committed such an evil act must be taken to the gates of the town and stoned to death. But never put a person to death on the testimony of only one witness. There must always be 2 or 3 witnesses. The witnesses must throw the first stones, and then all the people may join in. In this way, you will purge the evil from among you. And of course, this is reminding me, I don't know about you, this is reminding me of the woman that was caught in the act, and they brought her out. This is in the New Testament. They brought her out to Jesus and said, hey, look, this woman, she's quite loose. She's around here having sex with people, and she shouldn't be doing this. What do you say? Aren't we supposed to stone her? And Jesus said, let he without sin cast the first stone. That just reminded me of this, because it says here, let the witnesses, the people who actually saw it, let the witnesses must throw the first stones, and then all the people may join in. That's verse 7. Chapter 17, verse 7. And then all the people may join in, and this way you will purge the evil from among you. Suppose a case arises, this is verse 8. Suppose a case arises in a local court that is too hard for you to decide. For instance, whether someone is guilty of murder or only of manslaughter, or a difficult lawsuit, or in case involving different kinds of assault. Take such legal cases to the place the Lord your God will choose and present them to the Levitical priests or the judge on duty at that time. They will hear the case and declare the verdict. You must carry out the verdict they announce and the sentence they prescribe at the place the Lord chooses. You must do exactly what they say. After they have interpreted the law and declared their verdict, the sentence they impose must be fully executed. Do not modify it in any way. Anyone arrogant enough to reject the verdict of the judge or of the priest who represents the Lord your God must die. In this way, you will purge the evil from Israel. Then everyone else will hear about it and be afraid to act so arrogantly. I can understand that too, because what's the purpose of having laws if you're not going to uphold the law? If you're going to make a decision and then say, I really don't like it and do something else, like what's the point of it? Okay, but verse 14, we're still in chapter 17. Verse 14, it says, guidelines for a king. Guidelines for a king. You are about to enter the land the Lord your God is giving you. When you take it over and settle there, you may think, we should select a king to rule over us like the other nations around us. If this happens, be sure to select a king. If this happens, be sure to select as king the man the Lord your God chooses. You must appoint a fellow Israelite. He may not be a foreigner. This reminds me of at least the politics here in the United States, that a natural-born citizen, is it right? Yeah, a natural-born citizen or somebody who is a United States citizen can be a president, not a foreigner. I wonder, is that where they got this from? Yeah, that's verse 15. If this happens, be sure to select a king, the man the Lord your God chooses. You must appoint a fellow Israelite. He may not be a foreigner. And then also, like in the UK and in other places, a lot of royalty say they are chosen because of divine, selection. So I wonder, is that where they get that from as well? Again, that's verse 15 in chapter 17. The king must not build up a large stable of horses for himself or send his people to Egypt to buy horses, for the Lord has told you, you must never return to Egypt. The king must not take many wives for himself, because they will turn his heart away from the Lord, and he must not accumulate large amounts of wealth in silver and gold for himself. Another piece of commentary. I've had conversations with some coworkers before that happen to be talking about polygamy and how God approved of it, because there's plenty of people in the Old Testament that had many, many wives. But it's even saying right here in Deuteronomy, as far as a ruler, somebody in a position of leadership, and maybe this is an example for all to follow, but it says right here, verse 17 and 17, the king must not take many wives for himself. Why? Because they will turn his heart away from the Lord. I guess that's a lot of distraction. I mean, when you have one person in a relationship, that's a lot of commitment. When you have a lot of people, that's a lot of distraction. That's just my personal opinion. You guys know from time to time I throw in my own commentary and questions. But let's move on. Verse 18. When he sits on the throne as king, he must copy for himself this body of instruction on a scroll in the presence of the Levitical priest. He must always keep that copy with him and read it daily as long as he lives. That way he will learn to fear the Lord his God by obeying all the terms of these instructions and decrees. This regular reading will prevent him from becoming proud and acting as if he is above his fellow citizens. It will also prevent him from turning away from these commands in the smallest way. And it will ensure that he and his descendants will reign for many generations in Israel. That reminds me of daily affirmations. Daily affirmations and something else. I don't know, maybe if it's goals or your vision board, but it's something where if you look at it every day, or if you read it every day, or if you have it someplace where you can see it every day, you can be reminded of it and it just becomes a part of who you are. Yeah. Let me know what you think about that in the comment section or the chat room. But yeah, that's interesting. He must read it every day as long as he lives. That way he will learn to fear the Lord his God by obeying all the terms of these instructions and decrees. This regular reading, this is verse 20, this regular reading will prevent him from becoming proud and acting as if he is above his fellow citizens. It will also prevent him from turning away from these commands in the smallest way, and it will ensure that he and his descendants will reign for many generations in Israel. I like that. I like that. All right, on to chapter 18. Chapter 18 is talking about gifts for the priests and Levites. Remember that the Levitical priests, that is, the whole tribe of Levi, will receive no allotment of land among the other tribes in Israel. Instead, the priests and Levites will eat from the special gifts given to the Lord, for that is their share. They will have no land of their own among the Israelites. The Lord himself is their special possession, just as he promised them. Another commentary piece. That one song that says his eye is on the sparrow, something, something, something. There is a line of lyrics in there. It says, Jesus is my portion, right? Something like that. Jesus is my portion. And I'm reminded of that when I see this part. It says, the Lord himself is their special possession. Like everybody else has their portion of land, this is your portion, God. Let me know what you think about that. Katan cooking Mama's homestead pops in the house. Morning, she says. Sorry, I'm late. I overslept. Girl, you must have been sleeping good. You was sleeping good. You was wrapped up in them sheets. Pillow was extra soft. You was feeling good, wasn't you? That's okay. I was feeling pretty good too. But welcome and good morning. You got on your church choir robe? I'm just playing. When she read her Bible, she have on her church choir robe, but that's an inside joke. Back to chapter 18. Back to chapter 18. I think I'm in verse 3. These are the parts the priest may claim as their share from the cattle, sheep, and goats that the people bring as offerings: the shoulder, the cheeks, and the stomach. You must also give to the priests the first share of the grain, the new wine, the olive oil, and the wool at shearing time. For the Lord your God chose the tribe of Levi out of all your tribes to minister in the Lord's name forever. Suppose a Levite chooses to move from his town in Israel, wherever he is living, to the place the Lord chooses for worship. He may minister there in the name of the Lord his God, just like all his fellow Levites who are serving the Lord there. He may eat his share of the sacrifices and offerings, even if he also receives support from his family. And in verse 9, it's talking about a call to holy living. A call to holy living. This is verse 9. When you enter the land the Lord your God is giving you, be careful not to imitate the detestable customs of the nations living there. For example, never sacrifice your son or daughter as a burnt offering. And do not let your people practice fortune telling or use sorcery or interpret omens or engage in witchcraft or cast spells or function as mediums or psychics or call forth the spirits of the dead. Where is that, in Exodus? I think it was in Exodus that we touched on Molech. I think the name was Molech, some statue that the people, the pagans around the area had built, and they would sacrifice their newborn children to this idol, this statue. And yeah. So that's what that is referring to. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that was in Exodus that we covered that like a month ago. Talking about Molech, Molech. So yes, that is verse 10. For example, never sacrifice your son or daughter as a burnt offering, and do not let your people practice fortune telling or use sorcery or interpret omens or engage in witchcraft or cast spells or function as mediums. Or psychics, or call forth the spirits of the dead. Anybody want to play a little bit of Ouija? Just saying. Back when I was a youngster, teen, I thought all that stuff was fun and cool and just a game. But it's saying right here, says it right here, chapter 18, verse 10. Don't do it. Not saying that it's not real, not saying that it doesn't have something to it. It's probably something to it, and that's why God is saying, don't do it. Okay, verse 12. Anyone who does these things is detestable to the Lord. It is because the other nations have done these detestable things that the Lord your God will drive them out ahead of you. But you must be blameless before the Lord your God. The nations you are about to displace consult sorcerers and fortune tellers, but the Lord your God forbids you to do such things. I think there is something to that. I really do. I think you could probably find out a lot of things through these other areas, but why do that when you could just go to the source? Why put your faith in that when you can just talk to God? If that's something God wants you to know, He will tell you. If that's something He wants to reveal to you, He will let you know. My opinion, my humble opinion. Let me know what you think in the comment section or in the chat room. Do not do it. It opens up evil. Amen. Yes, there are doors that shouldn't be open. Because when they are open, you may not be able to close them. And then you're wondering why all this stuff is going on in your life. It's because it's not a game. Just because Milton Bradley is stamped on the box does not mean it's a family friendly game. And even if it's a family friendly game, it's not a God friendly game. Moving on. Verse 12. Anyone who does these things is detestable to the Lord. It is because the other nations have done these detestable things that the Lord your God will drive them out ahead of you. But you must be blameless before the Lord your God. The nations you are about to displace consult sorcerers and fortune tellers, but the Lord your God forbids you to do such things. In verse 15, it's talking about true and false prophets. True and false prophets. Moses continued, the Lord your God will raise up for you a prophet like me from among your fellow Israelites. You must listen to him, for this is what you yourselves requested of the Lord your God when you were assembled at Mount Sinai. You said, don't let us hear the voice of the Lord your God any more or see this blazing fire, for we will die. Then the Lord said to me, what they have said is right. I will raise up a prophet like you from among their fellow Israelites. I will put my words in his mouth, and he will tell the people everything I command him. I will personally deal with anyone who will not listen to the messages the prophet claims on my behalf. But any prophet who falsely claims to speak in my name, or who speaks in the name of another God, must die. I don't remember who I had this conversation with lately, but somebody was like, well, why doesn't God just talk to us anymore? Just straight, just directly. Why doesn't God talk to us anymore? And this may be some clue as to why. The people, when they were at Mount Sinai, said, oh man, we don't want to speak to God directly. Why don't you talk to God and we'll get the message from you? Maybe there was just so much power there, so much divineness, so much greatness that they were afraid, or maybe they knew that like we're really not worthy to even talk to God right now. We have so much sin in our lives. You be the person in the middle. We know it's God, but we'll hear it from you. I think maybe that might be one reason why God doesn't talk to people directly anymore. But I said this a couple months ago when I first started reading Genesis. Like Adam and Eve in the garden, God was just hanging out and chilling with them, right? God was in the Garden of Eden just hanging out with Adam and Eve face to face, chilling, talking with them. And then there was a couple of people after the fact. Was it Abraham or was it Noah that God also talked to? But then as time goes on and like more and more sin is happening in the world, it's like God is starting to distance himself. First, it's just, first with it's in person, and then you just hear their voice, and now it's through like a burning bush or through a cloud. And it's like slowly but surely, the more wicked people become, God is still there, but we are distancing ourselves from him. Again, this is just my own opinion. Let me know what you think about it in the comment section or in the live chat. But I'm noticing like the further I go in to the Bible and the further we get away from God, he's not right there because, we're not able to handle it. We're not worthy. And so that's what's going on here. As far as the prophets, the people at Mount Sinai back in Exodus said, give us a representative. We will listen to God through this representative. So let me read that again. This is from verse 15. It is still that small voice that you have to hear him. Yeah. And that too. God does still talk to us, but are you listening? Are you listening? Are you quiet enough? Are you still enough? Or are you distracted? Or are you really not paying attention? Or are you just like, oh, let me rub this genie in the lamp so I can get an instant answer? Are you actually being quiet and still and prayerful and obedient and listening? Very good. Very good. I like that. That small voice, you have to hear him. Yeah. All right, let me pick it back up at verse 15 so I can cover what I just said and then move on to the next part. Moses continued, the Lord your God will raise up for you a prophet like me from among your fellow Israelites. You must listen to him, for this is what you yourselves requested of the Lord your God when you were assembled at Mount Sinai. You said, don't let us hear the voice of the Lord our God anymore or see this blazing fire, for we will die. Then the Lord said to me, what they have said is right. I will raise up a prophet like you from among their fellow Israelites. I will put my words in his mouth, and he will tell the people everything I command him. I will personally deal with anyone who will not listen to the message the prophet proclaims on my behalf. But any prophet who falsely claims to speak in my name, or who speaks in the name of another god, must die. But you may wonder, how will we know whether or not a prophecy is from the Lord? If the prophet speaks in the Lord's name, but his prediction does not happen or come true, you will know that the Lord did not give that message. That prophet has spoken without my authority and need not be feared. Chapter 19 is talking about cities of refuge, which is tomorrow, because I'm already done. Oh, wow. 16, 17, and 18, right? Hot diggity dog, I'm done. That went by fast, didn't it? Yeah, that was 16, 17, and 18, and then 19 I will be doing tomorrow. You have to meditate and be still. You have to meditate and be still. Meditate is one way to look at it. A lot of other cultures and religions do use the word meditate, but prayer, talking to God, actually just being still and talking to God, that is definitely one great way to just open up your spiritual ears and listen. Let me look back through the chat because sometimes people say that I missed what they said because I'm looking down and looking up. Also, I'll just do my shout out time too. Let's see. Hello, good morning, good morning, good morning. Overslept, laughing out loud. Do not do it. It opens up evil. Amen. It is that small voice. You still have to hear him. You have to meditate and be still. And amen. Okay. I didn't miss anybody today. I did not miss anybody today. So shout out time. Bucky's 2.0. Laverne Dorsey. Life of Key. The Wiz. Katat and Cookin' Mama's Homestead. And yes, unless somebody comes in at the last minute, thank you to my 40 fam, as Life of Key has proclaimed them. Thank you to my 40 fam for hanging out with me this morning. And it's a beautiful day. Actually, I have no idea what the weather is, but it's a beautiful day. Why? Why, you may ask? Because this is the day that the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. So it's a beautiful day. Okay, yes, now that is done, got my shout outs, got my reading, and other than that, quick prayer so that everybody can have a great Monday. This is going to be a great week, you guys. It's going to be a great week. Lord, dear Lord, thank you for today. This is the day that you have made, and I will rejoice. I will rejoice and be glad in it. And I pray that everyone listening in the live stream and also on the replay can find little things to be happy about this week, can find things to make them bring joy to their life, and find things to bring them some calm and comfort and consolation if they are dealing with some heavy and stressful issues. Lord, just be with everybody and let everybody know that your presence is there. I pray that everybody listening to the live stream or on the replay is inspired to read their own Bibles, especially right now, so that we can have something to focus on, something positive to focus on, something to give us courage and to give us understanding, so that even though there's so much going on in the world right now that we may not understand and may not know what's going to happen, we will still have faith and just a sense of calm in you, knowing that you got this and everything's gonna be okay. Amen, 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 amen. Let's see what else. What else? What else? What else? I think that's it. Well, I'm off of work, you guys, and so I'm happy. I still don't know what the future holds as far as what's going on with my job, what's going on with anything else, but I'm okay. What eyelash in my eyeball? I am okay. I am going to take it one day at a time. I'm going to take it 1 hour at a time. I am going to take it just one breath at a time. And whenever I feel like it's a little bit too much, I'm just going to be still and listen for that voice and be prayerful and just keep the faith. And I hope that you guys can too. Everybody be safe, be healthy, be positive. We walk by faith and not by sight. So everything that you see, we walk by faith and not by sight. Okay, on that note, I see an amen. I see you have a blessed day. I see another amen. I see the Lord is in charge. Y'all know, y'all already know. On that note, I'll see you tomorrow. Entrepreneur Drive 40, Entrepreneur Drive. Entrepreneur Drive 40, Entrepreneur Drive. Entrepreneur Drive 40, Entrepreneur Drive. Thanks for watching, share, like, and subscribe.